Good evening, friends. I am Dr. Ujjaini Halim, and I'm the state coordinator of West Bengal Election Watch, which is a part of National Election Watch and Association for Democratic Reform. We mainly work on electoral reforms, and our main focus is to make electorate, the people, aware about different aspects of elections, about the candidates, about the political parties, their manifestos, and about the political ecosystem, so as to help them to make an informed choice and to make the election free, fair, and fearless. We do know how fake news actually shape the environment before and during the election and also post election. Recognizing this aspect of fake news and the menace of fake news, as a state partner of ADR, since more than 1 year or so, we are systematically organizing youth workshop on responsible use of social media. So whatever we are doing around responsible use of social media is not election centered anymore. We do recognize that fake news is a menace which is ongoing, going all along, and it is touching several issues beyond election. There are audiences which are more prone to fake news and all. So, keeping all these things in mind, we are working on fake news in our own way, and that is more on awareness generation than on technical aspects of it. When it comes to technical aspects, we certainly depend a lot on experts like Pratik ji and other colleagues who have more expertise and who are experts in this field. So I am very happy today to have amongst us Pratik ji, Mr. Pratik Sinha. He hardly needs any introduction. He's a renowned media personality, as well as he's co-founder of Alt News, which is a very prominent e-news portal and website, which is debunking fake news systematically for years together, and which has received worldwide recognitions for its very brilliant work. And from all corners, alt news is very much now celebrated, and alt news fact check is something like it's a hallmark for any kind of fake news when we talk about fake news. So it's a special honor to have him, and thank you very much, Pratik, for
So,
giving us some time. Among our guests, we also have Dr. Vaidyanath Ghosh Dostidar. He has done his MBBS and MD, and he is a senior clinical fellow NHS UK, and he's a co-founder of a social civil society initiative known as Citizens Against Violence, and it's a Calcutta-based think tank, and they're working on policy advocacy to ensure good governance at all levels. Their focus area is basically public health and psychiatry. Today, and of course, we have with us Pooja Moitra. She is my colleague, and she is a human rights professional and closely associated with ADR as a volunteer. So, thank you very much for joining us. Today, we thought when the entire world and also India is so much natural, and it's very obvious we are so much concerned about COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, we're equally concerned about infodemic, the word which is coined by WHO. So in fighting COVID-19 pandemic, we feel it is also equally important to fight this infodemic. So this is the main motivation for today's discussion, and we would very much like to hear from Pratik ji about his um, his work in relation to this infodemic. Now, as you know, I mean, all of us now we are under lockdown. We are sitting at home, and we are sitting mostly with our smartphone or with our laptop, and the data is not so expensive. So, and this flow of information, fake and uh, and real, this flow of information is huge. So, do you think in this lockdown period, and in the context of pandemic, this infodemic has become a big concern and it has increased the workload of world news?
So yes, we do have increased workload, but before we go to that, what I would want to point out is that while WHO may be sort of realizing that we are in the middle of an infodemic right now, but infodemics don't happen, uh, just suddenly. It is not that one day we have good information and another day all the information is all over the place and we are in a system of information chaos. It has happened over time, and uh, the world in general, and also specifically the Indian institutions, whether it's the government, law enforcement, etc., or and the platforms, of course, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, etc. All of us have collectively failed in recognizing this issue. It is just that none of us were expecting a global pandemic of this scale to strike. And that is why we see ourselves in the middle of not only a pandemic but also an epidemic. But it also shows that we never prepared for it. We have we never made tools. We never made sure that the platforms have uh, the platforms are making policies in the middle of a pandemic. Yes, every organization, you cannot expect everything that happens in a pandemic, but it should not also come across as you're completely not ready. We have seen that already from the health point of view, where the health systems of multiple countries are crumbling under the pressure because the public health systems were not up to the mark. But we are also seeing uh, that multiple countries just do not have the capability of handling this information chaos. So that is the first thing, that it is not something that has happened suddenly. We have been handling misinformation for a very long time, and we have seen huge spikes of misinformation. For example, I can talk from the Indian perspective that, let's say, when Balakot happened, there was a huge spike of misinformation. When Kashmir, the 370 removal happened, there was a huge spike of misinformation. When during the CA&RC protest, a continuous spike of misinformation. Delhi riots, huge spike of misinformation. So we know that every time there is an event, however long, which involves the emotions of people at large, that is, people are generally at a at a higher emotional state, whether it is one of fear, one of hatred, one of anger. At that point of time, people become more susceptible to this kind of misinformation, because that is when their inherent biases, they sort of show up more prominently. So this is something that we've been talking about for a very long time, that uh, that countries as a whole, multiple institutions need to come together and find a solution to it. It is, what Altius is doing is a speck in the ocean, literally. What the approach has to be far more bigger and far more prominent.
And I mean, in this context, I mean, as you were also pointing out, that infodemic is nothing new. It was there and it is still continuing. So, do you see a connection between political economy and infodemic or fake news in general? I mean, see, coming back to the Indian scenario, we see a systematic slowdown of economy. We see unemployment, and we see different. Uh, we see polarization happening in different ways. Do you consider these as triggers of fake news?
So the so there are two kinds of misinformation that we are seeing, especially in the past 2 months. There's health and medical misinformation, and there's political misinformation. Okay, political misinformation has been a mainstay in the Indian misinformation sort of journey in the past 3 years. And number one, misinformation is not accidental; it is organized. If you look at the nature of misinformation, you'll see that, for example, videos as old as 3-4 years old, images as old as 3-4 years old, are used and reused and portrayed as events that represent the present. Now, it is not that people will suddenly come upon a video which is 4 year old and think that, hey, this belongs to the present. It doesn't happen like that. People look for these things so that they can portray it as incidents or events in the present. Secondly, the other kind of misinformation is events and incidents in the present, but they are twisted. They're twisted, and then they are portrayed in, in a different manner. Now, this organization of this information itself will indicate that that there is an attempt to shift narratives. That is, you want people to outrage and think about a certain thing while they ideally should be thinking about something else. And so it is not just about the political economy. We have seen such misinformation spikes, which are used to sort of derail many issues that the country should be talking about. And it is a constant, you're talking about something, you put in misinformation, you bring in information chaos, and then people don't know what to believe. Even whether it is, for example, the migrant workers issue. I'll give you a very simple example. Right at the start, when there was a huge outrage about PPE not being available for medical professionals, doctors, nurses, etc. So there was one account where we suddenly tweeted out saying that look, there's no PPE available, and what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to die? And the name of the person was, she was a female person, and suddenly, so I happened to retweet that because there was so many things, and then it turned out that the person who had originally created the account was male. Uh, and then I spoke to this person, and she said, yes, this account belongs to my brother, and he tweeted out, and it's a genuine concern. But what happened by the time that such one or two events were used to completely water down the demand for PPE on social media, saying that look, everybody is putting out misinformation, and that there's no issue with PP. So such things, even the smallest of things, misinformation is constantly used to divert narratives. So it is not just limited to political economy. Anytime there is any political event these days in India, and especially if it is against the ruling government, there will always be misinformation. Another quick example of how misinformation is used. This is from the opposite side of the ideological camp. So I think last week, a very active AIMIM party member was accused of raping a Dalit minor, and just 2 days before we put out the story, what started circulating is a poster which said that Alt News has fact checked that this person is not part of AIMIM, okay, with the Alt News logo, and we had never fact checked anything like that. So then we had to put out the story that look, this is not our poster. We have never fact checked this. And then we spoke to various party functionaries, and on the condition of anonymity, they told us that he was a very active party member. So every camp has realized that look, if there's something comes, suddenly, because there were so many pictures of this particular person, the accused, with the MLA, with the AMMLA, so it becomes very obvious that there's most likely a connection, a political connection between this person and the MLA, and the MLA himself had retweeted this posters. So to take the heat away, they use this misinformation to say that all cases fact check that this person is not with the party. So at every moment they will use misinformation. They know that this tactic works, uh, and they will keep doing this until there's a wider framework which is formed around this issue.
So basically, all this fake news, I mean, each and every fake news has an agenda attached to it, and it is used for some kind of to push further that agenda. I mean, it could be a political agenda, it could be a business agenda, it could be anything. So,
May not be each and every one. There are differences. So, and if I can have 2 minutes, I'll also explain how, for example, on March 31st, this Tablighi Jamaat incident happened, right? And then there were these variety of videos which were put out claiming that. So, for example, there was this video of certain 4 5 Muslim youth sitting and licking plates and spoons,
right.
and it was so we fact checked that video, and we found that it is 2 years old, that it is an extreme custom in Bohri Muslims where they are not supposed to waste any food. So apparently there was an event after which these young Muslim boys were asked to lick the plates and spoons. Now that was claimed that this is an attempt to spread coronavirus. Okay, then there was another video where you could see about 20, 30 Muslim men sitting uh, in either a mosque or some such religious place, and they were moving in synchrony, and it was claimed that these people are sneezing with synchronization in order to spread coronavirus. Now, the claim is so bizarre. I mean, can even two people time their sneezes together? Imagine 50 people sneezing together. Can even two people time their sneezes together? But there was a series of misinformation that was put out right after March 31st, including, and I won't go into too much detail because it will take a very long time. But what that happened was that set a base, and that put fear into people. So now what happened was there was this town in Uttar Pradesh. I forget the name of the town. We have done the story. A Muslim fruit vendor was going, and what he must have done was he must have gone to the side of the road and relieved himself, and come back to his food cart. And it was claimed that he peed in a bottle and that sprinkled pee on the fruits, and that was a completely false claim. But uh, that was not organized. That was because there was a sense of fear, and you interpreted incident based on a bias that has been created using misinformation. Okay, so misinformation would first be used to create a bias in the society, and then that bias acts up where, because people are, have this, are getting socially conditioned, then they will act in a certain way when they'll start creating misinformation on their own without having a malicious intent. So, so it has an impact on the society as well. Another quick example. So there was this in Bengal. There are these few preachers, Muslim preachers, who were so they were putting out these long speeches, and they are still active on YouTube. And I understand Bengali, so I heard through those speeches. And what they were doing is that they were, so first, their first claim, and they were very, very effective speakers. So the first claim was that what happened in China was a curse by Allah. Okay. And they said that, the figures, whatever is being shown is all false. Towns and villages have been cleaned out of people. Lakhs and lakhs of people have died. But eventually, and all this was happening because of China, how China dealt with Uyghur Muslims, and because they had banned Quran, etc.
Religion.
They had banned Quran. There's also, so even in this, about banning of Quran, there is an element of misinformation, and we have done a story on that. And then they go on to say that, and eventually what happened was that China had to reopen their mosque. The mosques were never closed. China had to reopen their mosque, and all Chinese people went there, including the prime minister, and all of them started getting cured without medicines. And so, and so they are making this whole tale that what is happening is a curse because of Allah. Now in Nagpur, there was this Muslim man. What he did was he created a TikTok video. He rubbed currency notes on his face, okay, and claiming that ये Allah का कहर है or something like that. ये Allah का azab hai. I think that was the sentence. So there are all these, so the religious, the priests and Maulanas, etc., they are also utilizing this pandemic to forward their case. And they are putting out this misinformation, which is misleading common people. And so this Nagpur video, because it looked a very ugly video where this person is, pressing currency notes against his face and saying the same. And that went viral. And now after that, there are videos of, notes being, for example, one person went to the ATM and some currency fell out of his pocket. He did not notice. Police came and everything started being scanned. Day before, I think last week, we did a story from Chandigarh where a person, a worker, 10 rupees fell from him. He was mentally disturbed, and people claim that he has spat on it and did that. So there is a clear connection between misinformation that is put out, impact, and then the resulting impact. So not everything is organized, but there is a large chunk which is organized and which is having this impact on the society, and it is a very, very real impact.
I think that's a very, very interesting fact that we have come to know. I mean, not all misinformation are generated from one or two sources. The base is created and then it starts rolling. Coming to Dr. Boidunath, I mean, maybe you have your own questions, but I also have a question to you. See, as a psychiatrist, you may tell us very briefly about the psych psychological aspects of fake news. When people spread fake news, why do they do that? Purely from the medical perspective, and also as a medical person, you are fighting COVID-19 from frontline, and you have also come across several fake news which are around COVID-19, and particularly which are very much viral in West Bengal. So would you like to share a little bit about that with us?
Well, I do have a question for both Ujjaini and Mr. Pratik Sinha. And since Mr. Pratik Sinha has come, it's more directed to him. There is a psychiatric basis of fake news. There is a doctor in New York University called Dr. James Leeton, and he's associated with CAV. And he's written a book called The Nazi Doctors, which assesses fake news, and the result is fake news, but the origin of fake news is xenophobia. And the concept of fake news originated from a psychiatrist of the US Navy in the First World War, by which they believed that information could be weaponized. Like prior to that, there wasn't a concept of weaponizing information, and it was perfected by the Nazi psychiatrists. So, on behalf of CAV psychiatrists and psychologists, we have studied a model, and we have also studied a remedy to that. And the basis is on 3 points. One is dehumanizing people. That's one. Secondly, targeting a particular community. And the third aspect is that when there is a deep-rooted political and social trauma, that leads to the generation of fake news. Like in Germany, there was the defeat of the First World War, which led to the origin of the fake news and xenophobia spread by the Nazis. So my first question to you is: do you think that psychiatrists and psychologists like ourselves and CAV can work with organizations like ADR and Alt News to counter fake news? Because there's a medical aspect to it which has been totally neglected. Like I know that you work on it and who works on it, but your study is more from a political aspect or academic aspect. But the deep origins of fake news lie in psychiatry. Like we regard people who are spreading fake news as mentally ill people because there is a explanation to that. There's a person called Mr. Lawrence. He was a psychologist, and he had analyzed animal behavior, and he had written a paper on this. And even Sigmund Freud had written a paper on this. We have a policy brief on this. So my definite specific question to you: do you think that an organization like CAV can work with Alt News on the psychological aspect and remedy? That is one. And I have a second question.
Can I respond to the first one first?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Okay. So, no, definitely. So, as I said, at the very beginning, so yes, there is a psychological aspect to misinformation, which is why I was talking about. And the 3 points that you put out, weaponization of misinformation, dehumanizing, and xenophobia. Those are to the point, and that is what we are observing. Number one, so all things we all so there's an all things science section where it is being headed by Dr. Sumaya Sheikh. So Dr. Sumaya Sheikh is a neuroscientist based in Sweden. So it is not that we have not looked into this aspect. We, in fact, also trying to do some sort of research. But as I said at the very start, what is needed is a much larger collaboration. So yes, we all should be people from different disciplines should be coming together. So my background is that of engineering. Actually, I'm not trained as a journalist. I have worked as 15 years as an engineer, and I thought that because I have certain technical skills which journalists are not trained with, and now there's some training happening in different colleges, in some of the top tier journalism colleges. But generally, when we started Alt News, there was no training, and so to answer your question, yes, people from different specialities, whether it's psychology, engineering, journalism, storytelling, education, very important, educationists. All of us need to come together and create a united front against this issue. This issue is not going to be solved by only one alt news, or this also actually eventually needs the government to come on board. I know that the government will not at this point in time, but I mean, for example, just one thing, just today, the Home Ministry put out this circular which said that, refer to alt news, and now they already deleted the circular. But but what it says is that there's an acknowledgement of the issue. It's a different matter that some. So this was released by the Police Research Bureau, and so there must be some police guy who researched this and put it out, and then there's political pressure, so they have to take out alt news, and that is why they had to pull back the circular. About 1 month ago, a UP police officer he created a video saying that look at PIB fact check and alt news to look for misinformation. Then he had to delete the video. So there's so much political pressure at play, but even the government acknowledges that the issue is real. It is affecting them because now there's misinformation against the government as well. There are completely fake circulars which have been circulated during the time of COVID. Completely fake circulars. So everybody is realized. So to answer your question, yes, all of us should be working together, and we'd be more than happy to work with organizations of your kind and ADR and any such organization to create a more widespread impact. For example, ADR does so many seminars. What ideally we would want is help ADR create a more sort of wholesome curriculum, which delves into
Exactly.
multiple aspects of misinformation, and help create trainers within the ADR volunteers so that they can go and train. Because all teams is just about 10 or 11 people, but yes, all of us need to work together.
That
Right.